The northern border of the kingdom of Krasis fell into a dark night, with undead appearing everywhere attacking humans. Duke Alien led his army into battle against the evil creatures, the spreading death forcing him to exclaim that in this world the number of undead had exceeded imagination. Before his eyes now was another equally troublesome thing, a deadly poisonous fog spreading wide. A close soldier shouted for Duke Alien to look quickly. It was the undead knight Durian. He fell into complete despair and said in a small voice that even if 10 elite knights risked their lives, humanity still might not be able to claim victory. He spoke a painful truth. They could not win this battle with their current small number of troops. The best thing they could do now was retreat and prepare for a siege. Duke Alien cursed damn it. This method could not be done. The northern wall had already been destroyed. If the gate also fell, then this kingdom would be finished. He gave the order that no matter what had to be sacrificed today, the army must stop them at all costs. As soon as his words ended, someone from within the castle rode out to the battlefield fearlessly. The Duke shouted loudly, "What the hell is this? Who is the one charging out so recklessly?" The close soldier squinted to see who the person on the horse was. He excitedly cheered that Lord Urin Rox had arrived. The Lord had come to assist from the Marcus Rox family in the south. Urin drew a dagger from his horse in a ready stance, shocking everyone. The crowd discussed whether that person was using a dagger, but his opponent was Durian. The confused crowd insisted a dagger could never kill Durian. Before the crowd's discussion even ended, Urin's movement was already complete. Even Duke Alien had to open his mouth wide, calling impossible. The soldier beside him continued that Durian had melted away. This was impossible. After dealing with the leader, Urin used the same movement on the undead horde. The terrifying undead also immediately melted with just one strike. Everyone around changed their attitude and asked each other whether that person was a saint sent from heaven. Their words reached him and made Urin laugh. What saint? He just stole a few skills better than others. A notification came that all stats had increased. Everything good for this body he would absorb completely. To have the ability like today, it must be told from 6 months ago, when he was a modern person who suddenly transmigrated into the book he had written. Urin just woke up and looked at the unfamiliar scenery, exclaiming in shock, "What is this? Where is this place?" Aaron, the butler, came and caringly asked if the young master had woken up. Urin stared at the beautiful girl, assessing that the clothes on her were not quite right, and there was also a sword hanging on her belt. Aaron saw the young master not answering and asked a few more questions to confirm he was okay before hurrying to find the priest. Urin still wanted to ask a few things, but the girl had already disappeared, so he decided to explore this place himself. In the mirror reflected a fat kid. The weight exceeding normal made him scream, "What kind of appearance is this?" He regretfully asked where his charming middle-aged appearance had gone. Why was he a fat kid? Not long after, the girl brought a priest and an extremely dignified-looking man into the room. As soon as he entered, Willing angrily scolded the one who brought shame to the family. Urin blinked, wondering who this scary old man was. The priest spoke up to intervene that the young master had just woken up, then diligently reported that there were no serious injuries. Willing listened seriously, then shouted loudly, "It would be better if this brat just died." He yelled in Urin's face that he attacked his own fiancée, truly worse than a beast. He pointed at his face, saying he was already 19 years old. It was time to sober up. The more Willing spoke, the angrier he became. Even his youngest son had already awakened his aura, yet the eldest son had accomplished nothing except gaining weight. Willing ordered that once he sobered up, he must immediately apologize to Ilya. If he did not receive forgiveness, then consider his life over. The man before him kept talking non-stop, but in his head only the name Ilya remained, so he was in Urin's identity. Urin suddenly asked, "So you are willing?" The man heard his son call his name and whipped around, scolding, "You disrespectful brat. How dare you call your father's name directly?" Urin was hit by his father until stars filled his eyes, but still could not believe this was real. He hoped this was just a dream, but when he woke up again, he still could not escape this dream. Urin woke up again and asked the person beside him if she was Aaron the butler who always followed him, and also because he had flirted with Elia that he was beaten unconscious. Aaron corrected more precisely that the young master had tried to assault the young lady and was beaten until he passed out. Urin clutched his head, cursing damn it. He did not know what had happened, but he had transmigrated into the web novel he wrote. What was worse was that he did not transmigrate into the male lead, but into the trashy male supporting character, who ultimately met an extremely miserable death. He abandoned his image and shouted loudly, "This cannot be the novel." Urin, the person the author transmigrated into, to put it simply, was a bastard. This person had no talent, no ability, and did not even try. Urin was trash who used the status of being the eldest son and prestigious family. Just like that, his fiancée was stolen by the male lead, and to take revenge he attacked the male lead. The result was being beaten back and dying miserably in an unknown alley. The author, who transmigrated into his own story, clenched both fists, asking himself how he should live in this unknown world. This was a fantasy world, and he did not know what abilities this character had. Suddenly realizing something, he thought seriously that he knew the male lead's item was not yet obtained, so he needed to prepare quickly. His quick action was immediately hindered by the excess fat on his body, making him unable to stand balance and fall down. Eren came to help him up. At this moment, Eren could see the butler's skill panel. He needed time to evaluate these abilities, so he found a way to get the butler out of the room. While thinking frantically, he accidentally saw his own skill panel through the mirror. Special note for character Eren: severely obese, special trait is eyes of the creator, Tang sect of Sichuan is locked. Among them was something extremely special that caught his attention, which was Tang sect of Sichuan. The martial arts of Tang sect of Sichuan specialized in poison and hidden weapon. Eren grinned, thinking if he really received it, then it would help his future life greatly. The clan that frequently appeared in Chinese novels, a prestigious family in the Sichuan region famous for refining poisons and assassinating with poisoned hidden weapons. Eren wondered why Tang sect of Sichuan was here. He thought this was just a medieval fantasy world, but he was particularly pleased. If he could activate this skill, then everything would change. Eren left Uren's room to report that he had just woken up to Marcus Willing. Uren's condition through the butler's eyes was still not stable. He fell while moving, so his physical condition was really weak. The Marcus sighed and replied that Priest Alio reported the wounds were not too serious, but the boy's behavior was too abnormal. Because his son normally, when told to apologize to Ilie, would rage furiously, this time he easily agreed. Willing affirmed that personality could not change so quickly. Perhaps he was just dizzy. He guessed his son's personality would rage furiously tomorrow, demanding revenge. Eren did not agree with the Marcus' thinking, making him somewhat at a loss. Even he, as the father of that boy, had given up hope, yet the butler still had faith. Willing laughed loudly, feeling sorry for the girl. She should have continued being a knight instead. Currently serving his cursed son must be extremely exhausting. Eren did not say it out loud, but in her head silently exclaimed no. The young master today had something very special. She just did not know how to explain it. That special thing was shown right when she returned to Uren's room. He made a request, wanting to go to the training hall. Eren was shocked and worried she misheard, so asked again if he wanted to practice right now. Uren's chubby body asked the butler back, was there a problem? The eyes of the creator trait could help him see everyone's stats, but to activate Tang sect of Sichuan, he was helpless. Uren guessed perhaps it was because of this fat body, so for now just practice first, then slowly find a way. Uren dragged his overweight body, following Eren under the hot sun, having to open his mouth wide to breathe. He silently cursed, damn it. This manners garden was as big as several fields combined, making him exhausted to death. But he could not practice in his room because laziness would drag him back to bed. It was best not to practice at home. On the way, Uren met quite a few servants greeting him. He discovered that the favorability of these servants was completely negative. This stat, compared to those who came later, was even higher than those who came earlier. Hate, resent, really hate, extremely hate were all there. Uren squinted his round eyes, thinking everyone disliked the owner of this body, also because he was too terrible. The servants' reactions were not wrong at all. He panted heavily, unable to walk anymore, and asked Eren if they had arrived yet. She pointed ahead, saying almost there. That was training ground number 3. The knights usually used grounds 1 and 2. He noticed someone had already arrived first and was training in the yard. That person's favorability toward him was -91, showing a state of wanting to kill. Rekka spoke up, oh my, isn't this the young master? What mood struck you today to come to the training ground? Uren stepped back a few paces and whispered in Eren's ear, asking if he and that guy had any grudge. She showed understanding and asked if Uren did not remember. A few years ago, when the Marcus forced him to practice, he had thrown a tantrum, then called Rekka, who was a trainee knight at that time, and cut a scar on his face. Also because of this matter, the Marquis also gave up on teaching his son. Uren retorted that was impossible, but he himself was at a loss for words because the owner of this body really was such a hopeless bastard. Rekka's tense face looked at his enemy, making Uren anxiously pull Eren to flee from the training ground. After going quite a distance, he asked Eren if there were any other training grounds nearby, the kind of ground he could use alone. Eren thought of ground number 4, but it was far. The facilities were dilapidated, like just an empty plot of land. Hearing these conditions, Uren instead showed interest and told the butler to hurry there. Once he decided to lose weight, he must practice seriously. Arriving at training ground number 4, the first thing Uren did was choose a weapon. Tang sect of Sichuan specialized in throwing knives and small weapons. He picked up a knife. aimed at a target not far away, and threw it. The knife drew a few curved lines on the floor, then fell down. Yurin snorted coldly, thinking he thought just throwing it would unlock the skill. Seeing the serious expression from Eren, he felt a bit guilty and smiled, saying he was just throwing for fun. Finally, he added himself that he should build up physical strength first. He started running around the yard, not forgetting to tell Eren to do whatever she wanted and just leave him alone to practice. News of the son voluntarily going to practice quickly reached Marcus Willing. He showed quite some surprise that this was strange, then self-deprecatingly wondered how long he could last. Just like that, steadily every week receiving news that his son was still continuously practicing. In 3 weeks, not missing a single session made him gradually change his attitude. Eren let him know the young master had lost considerable weight. His appearance had also changed noticeably, until one day Willing had to proudly praise that he was indeed his son. Losing the chubbiness made him look much more handsome. He exclaimed that his son had really matured. Yurin sadly thought he had lost quite a lot of weight, but the Tang sect of Sichuan trait still had not unlocked. He told himself if after 1 more month it still could not be unlocked, then he would go steal all the good opportunities from the main character. Eren brought dinner for Yurin from outside. It was chirine soup. Although its name sounded crude, this was a nutritious dish for physical strength. It was very effective in burning fat and building muscle. In the Rock's family, eating this dish after training had become tradition. Yurin looked at the bowl of soup and frowned in displeasure, asking Shireen again. Eren asked if he was tired of it already. Yurin immediately answered of course, he had been eating this dish for 3 consecutive weeks. Eren strangely asked Yurin what he wanted, just to lose weight or to become a knight. He did not need to think and affirmed of course he wanted to become a knight. The result was as expected. The butler let him know that in this territory even the great Marquis had to eat Shireen's soup when practicing, so he should stop complaining and eat the soup. Yurin silently thought, following the predecessors, what kind of outdated culture was this? But indeed, thanks to this dish, he had lost weight more easily. He encouraged himself to endure it. The first spoonful put in his mouth, Yurin already noticed the soup today had a strange taste. A status appeared notifying he had been poisoned. The next notification was that Yurin had met the conditions to unlock Tang sect of Sichuan. The trait had been activated. Yurin had not yet processed the emotion of being poisoned when he received the notification that thanks to being poisoned he had unlocked the trait he had struggled for a whole month to get. His face went blank, not knowing what attitude to show at this moment. Willing had always been silently observing Yurin's daily changes. He praised himself that his son was not ordinary and should look like this. Kana, his second wife, knocked on the door bringing in tea, asking what he was staring at so intently. He smiled and hid the truth, answering he was just admiring the beautiful garden. Kana proudly claimed she had personally taken care of all of them. He perfunctorily praised back that her hands were truly skillful. Kana suddenly came to hug Willing from behind, whispering, when would he announce Colin as the hare as previously said? Since the decision had been made, shouldn't it be done sooner? Willing hesitated, answering it might need some more time. The madam did not agree with this answer and questioned hadn't he said it would be within this month. The Marquis brought up the issue that she must have heard lately Yurin had sobered up, and he was the eldest son of the Rock's family. If he could maintain his form, then he could completely become a good hare. Kana's voice turned cold, answering yes, she had heard about Yurin. She was also worried, but fortunately, the boy had learned to think more maturely. She asked if the Marquis must feel relieved. The joy in his eyes was so immersed that he did not notice his wife's unusual words. He laughed loudly, saying yes, who would have thought being slapped by his fiancée would make him wake up. Kana returned to the matter of her son, asking once more, so what did he plan about the inheritance? The Marquis thought, let's see, Yurin had only been training for 3 weeks, just observe for a while longer to be sure. But he promised his second wife that once Yurin returned to being delinquent as before, he would immediately hand over the succession rights to her son. Kana had her own plan in mind and bid farewell to the Marquis. As soon as the door closed, the second wife's true face was revealed. She angrily grimaced and cried out, just wait. Returning to Yurin after eating the poisoned soup and accidentally unlocking the Tang sect of Sichuan trait, he felt this was like a joke. Now he noticed below the status panel showing the Chirine soup information, there was a small arrow to scroll down for more. Below was Hanyang herb with numbing properties. Basically, it was an herb, but contained mild toxins. In small doses, it was harmless to adults, but if accumulated over time, it would gradually paralyze the body. Yurin's eyes sparkled, wondering there was something like this too. Eren, sitting opposite, asked if he didn't want to eat. Yurin casually answered of course he would eat, then put several big spoonfuls in his mouth. In his head, he secretly calculated who could have put the poison in. Normally Yurin would not die from poison, and something had changed. Thinking carefully now, he realized things that should have happened were nowhere to be seen. According to the plot in the novel, around this half-month was when Colin would be officially announced as the heir. But currently he saw no movement from that side. Urin thought the only possibility was because he had been diligently training, so he could guess the person who put the poison was from that side. After finishing the soup, the condition to unlock his paralysis poison was also completed. He raised his finger, praising the soup was so delicious it brought tears to his eyes. Then he found an excuse to send Aaron outside. He wanted to be alone. He quickly ran to the mirror and opened the status panel to find the Tang sect of Sichuan trait. First, at the lowest level would be paralysis poison. At level 2 was prolonged poison, then serum, soul exterminating smoke, and so on. Urin exclaimed there were so many. Scrolling to the last level was the invisible ultimate technique. He wondered if this was the highest grade poison that could be achieved. If he wanted to get it, he had to unlock the lower levels first, so it was an upgrade system. First, at level 1, to get the most basic paralysis poison required internal energy to unlock. Urin felt this condition was not wrong because Tang sect of Sichuan used internal energy to refine poison. The status panel displayed basic internal energy options in order with 3 choices. At the bottom was also carefully attached a notification that only one type of internal energy could be chosen. He smiled. For a martial arts fan, this was easy. Black poison art focused on poison. Thunder needle art specialized in hidden weapons. 10,000 poison divine art, although it took longer to cultivate, but it helped the practitioner master both poison and hidden weapons. Urin exclaimed the more the better, that's what a martial arts protagonist should be, so he chose 10,000 poison divine art. Urin's body immediately noticed something different. He couldn't believe the martial arts formula automatically imprinted into his mind. He excitedly climbed onto the bed, sat properly, and began the process of circulating energy. Urin felt a strange flow running throughout his body. He guessed this was Qi guiding it through the meridians, then returning to the Danshin to consolidate internal power. Urin was absorbed in practicing all night until the sky outside gradually brightened. He exclaimed this was wonderful. The thing about martial artists in novels practicing all night without sleeping was true. He didn't feel tired at all. Urin stood up, feeling his whole body full of energy. He could even sense the air around him. Now he could know how many birds were outside the window without looking. Furthermore, his Danshin was warm and full of energy. Urin curiously circulated Qi to his head, then opened the status window without looking at the mirror. It really opened as desired. After a while, he again sensed a familiar energy flow outside the door. Erin came in from outside. She came in intending to call him out of bed, but unexpectedly, the bed was still intact. She asked in surprise if he hadn't slept at all. She worriedly added this wouldn't do. Don't practice today. Urin disagreed, showing his muscular arm to the butler combined with a smiling face, saying he was in extremely good condition, he had to go practice. Erin felt it was strange but still obeyed and prepared breakfast for him to go practice. On the way she kept muttering, since when did the young master have muscles? Urin, like previous days, went to training ground number 4. Like the first day he came here, he went straight to the weapon table and chose a small knife for himself. When looking at the target in front, he discovered before his eyes appeared a targeting reticle like in FPS games. He took advantage of this opportunity to aim at the target, then threw the knife with all his might. The knife went in a straight line and stabbed into the center of the target. For the first time, Erin looked at Urin with horrified eyes. At the same time as completing the first target, Urin's system displayed that Tang sect of Sichuan hidden weapons had been unlocked. Erin still couldn't believe her eyes. She stepped forward asking what Urin had just done. He pretended not to know, answering not sure. Perhaps this was the result of a month of hard training. The butler almost immediately said that was impossible. Urin found it extremely interesting. This was the first time he saw Erin in such a flustered state. He picked up another knife, wanting to try once more. This time no longer curious or rushed, he slowly felt it again, and when he threw, something was happening. To be more specific, there was a feeling like a surge of heat rising from deep in his lower abdomen. It controlled his speed to be faster. The throwing force was also stronger. The second knife stuck right next to the first knife. Erin gaped in amazement, crying, "Oh my heavens." Honestly speaking, having a targeting reticle like in shooting games appearing right before Urin's eyes at this moment was no different from possessing a cheat. Urin recalled his glorious past. Back then, when playing shooting games, he had once been champion of the tournament at Yangdongpo Internet Cafe. Erin asked Urin what the hell just happened. Her face was covered in cold sweat. It was truly beyond imagination. Urin suddenly asked Erin if she could sense anything from him. Erin seriously evaluated. Apart from yesterday, he looked a bit lighter in weight. She really didn't know what to say. Urin asked only lighter in weight. He wanted to confirm more clearly about the power he currently had. Aaron still naively didn't notice the abnormality and answered yes. He had been practicing daily and only eating chirine soup, so he looked somewhat slimmer. But today urine had indeed changed noticeably. Aaron asked really while thinking in her heart this butler did not notice the internal energy flowing in his body at all. That meant in this world only he could use internal energy without anyone knowing. Urine joyfully cheered, oh heavens, he had just grasped a wonderful power. He smiled happily, picking up another knife, wanting to continue practicing. A few more knives were thrown, but all gathered at the center of the target. Aaron's eyes grew rounder the more she watched. She stepped forward, asking Aaron if she could try it once. Her knife-throwing motion was very decisive, and the force was not light. However, like the first time, Aaron threw the knife, deviated from its trajectory, and couldn't even hit the target. Aaron, standing beside, smiled, so she also had things she couldn't do. While Aaron was throwing knives, he took the opportunity to open the status panel. Seichonga memory had been unlocked, shooting axis activated. Thanks to completing the activation, it allowed the player to throw faster and stronger. It didn't just stop at memorized objects, but also with stones, wood, statues, iron swords, or any other objects like weapons already in the subconscious. Aaron's eyes lit up, thinking, really, any weapon? If so, then he had to try a few things. He stepped forward, telling Aaron to move back a bit. She did as told, then looked at his hand, full of doubt, wondering what he was going to do with a broken wooden sword. Aaron didn't answer and concentrated on the sword. He could feel extremely abundant internal energy flowing from his danshin to his arm. After feeling it was enough, he shouted loudly, shooting axis, and threw the sword. The sword pierced through the target, creating a large crack. Aaron's head was filled with exclamation marks as she screamed in horror, what the hell was that? She excitedly came beside, asking young master what just happened. What was that strange power? Aaron pretended to be clueless, guessing, not sure, perhaps it came from training. Aaron immediately interrupted, that was impossible. He looked at Aaron for a moment, then shared that he knew she reported everything to his father. But today he had a request, asking her to keep this secret for a while. Aaron explained this was because he needed to experiment with a few things. Later he would explain everything clearly himself, so please wait. On the way back after training, Aaron followed behind when they accidentally encountered someone. He sensed this person had a problem and used the eyes of the creator to check. His name was Peru. This person had the characteristic of poison palm. Aaron followed behind, whispering poison, an ability that helped him put poison in food. So the person who put the poison was definitely this guy. He planned to use this person for a real experiment. An arrow appeared in Aaron's hand, pointing straight at that guy's direction. Without wasting much time, Aaron from afar used paralysis poison on Peru. The person walking ahead immediately felt a twisting pain from his stomach, gradually spreading throughout his body, making him unable to move. Only a few seconds passed and Peru's whole body collapsed. Aaron stepped forward to check, then laughed loudly, success. He could even see the effective time of the poison, showing nearly 60 minutes. But first he had to take this guy to a secluded place. He put him in an abandoned house, then called for him to wake up. Aaron shone a light, standing straight, looking at the guy lying on the ground, asking if he could feel anything yet. Aaron then asked another question, if he knew who he was, along with a warning if he wanted to live he should speak honestly. Aaron smiled and asked if the person who put poison in the soup was him, right? He sat down at eye level with the opponent calling Peru's name, saying he had a few questions to ask. He shone a light on his face, ordering if correct blink once, if wrong blink twice. As soon as he finished speaking he tested to see if he understood. Peru blinked as requested. Aaron praised him for doing well, then asked once more if the person who put poison in the soup was him. Peru, despite being scared, still had to blink to admit it. He continued asking if the poison he mixed in was hanyang grass, right? The opponent was horrified, then blinked again. Aaron praised him, saying good. One more question, was the person who ordered the poisoning Marcus' wife Kana, right? Beyond expectation this time, Peru blinked twice. He asked in surprise it wasn't her, then continued with a warning that lying would not end well. Aaron took out a small knife from his person and held it against the opponent's throat, threatening that now he already knew everything. If he dared to lie, his throat would be slit. He asked once more if the person who ordered him was Lady Kana. After threatening several times, the result was still no. He guessed he didn't have the guts to lie. Aaron put another poison pill in the opponent's mouth, which was the paralysis poison. After finishing, he announced important news: from now on he had 1 month to live. Without the antidote, all his internal organs would disintegrate. Therefore, if he wanted to live from now on, he must completely obey his orders. He looked at Peru's frightened face with great satisfaction, lightly touched his body to release him so he could move and speak. Aaron repeated the question just now, asking who was the person who ordered him to poison. Peru, fearing death, immediately confessed it was the Night Squad Captain Karox Livingtane. He continued asking if it was true that he ordered to make him die from illness within this year. Karox was Kana's brother. He got the position of Night Squad captain thanks to Kana's marriage to the Marcus. Therefore, Urin's deduction was not wrong. He was indeed an accomplice with Lady Kana, but now that was no longer an important issue. Peru received a piece of paper from Urin. He looked through it, then asked if all these things were poisons. He didn't answer the question but continued saying very few people understood poisons like him, meaning he could find this amount from the black market. The order from Urin was from now on he would be the person extracting money from Karox to collect all those types of poison and bring them back to him, along with an additional condition that at the latest it must be available by tomorrow night. Peru confusedly asked why he needed these poisons. Urin's eyes immediately turned cold, saying had he given permission to ask questions. After finishing all instructions, Urin leisurely left. He also emphasized to the opponent that from now on his soup must always be overflowing with Hanyang. Returning to his room, he finally began to drop the act and danced around laughing loudly that having martial arts was truly powerful. The more he thought, the louder he laughed. Who would have thought he was fooled by paralysis poison? It was just a handful of dry leaves conveniently rolled up. Urin calmed down and told himself never mind, he had to quickly master the techniques of Tang sect of Sichuan. If it was as he wrote, then a terrible event would soon happen to the outside world. Before it came, he needed to prepare well. Peru, as promised, brought all the poisons Urin requested, placing each one on the table, including Hanyang, Yekrapa, and cypress leaves. He looked at that large pile of poison and proudly thought himself too skilled to have found so many rare poisons at once. Urin smiled, answering this was nothing. Actually, he could see all the uses of each type through the status window. Of course, he only said the first sentence, while the second sentence he only dared to be smug alone. After checking through, he asked Peru if he wanted to kill him, then just Hanyang grass would be enough, right? If adding other things, what would be the use? Peru got the chance to show his expertise and explained because Hanyang grass needed time to take effect, and if there was antibody resistance, it would take even longer. If mixing Yekrapa after the symptoms of Hanyang grass appeared, the effectiveness would increase. In other words, the poison would be stronger, but symptoms would decrease when combining them. Urin curiously asked where the opponent learned these things from. He shyly said at 8 years old he was sold to the Living Tane family and was taught by a poison master. Unexpectedly, there was such a story. Urin continued asking if there were many people like him in the Living Tane family. Peru honestly answered initially there were 20 children, but in the end only he alone survived. Urin felt this explanation was quite reasonable because children without traits compatible with poison could not live long with poison, but from what he said he could guess he hated the Living Tane family quite a lot. It seemed like he had just found a useful tool. Urin praised him for doing well today. This was enough, he could go back. After seeing him off, Urin began upgrading the 10,000 poison divine art. He would swallow all the poisons that Peru brought. Biting into them, he only felt disgust, wanting to vomit. In one night, he had swallowed 4 types of poison and began the chi cultivation requirement. The next morning, Erin came to the room as her duty to wake the young master. This was the second time she was shocked by the changes in Urin's body. The obese body of before had now become a firm body showing large muscles. She screamed, "What the hell is this?" In just a few short days, she had to endure one shock after another. Urin, thanks to the 10,000 poison divine art upgrading to level 2, received the additional martial art Heavenly Dragon Steps. Additionally, the poison arts Prolonged Poison, Truth Serum, and Soul Exterminating Smoke had all been unlocked. Erin stepped into the room and had to cover her nose, crying out, "What was this terrible smell?" Urin smiled, saying he understood. When internal energy advanced and martial arts were upgraded, the waste substances in the body would be expelled in large quantity. Urin asked the butler if the smell was very unpleasant. He would go open the window. Erin covered her nose tightly and cried out, "Don't, just go to the bathroom first." The two then followed the plan like every day and went to the training ground. On the way, Urin took the opportunity to practice the movements of the Swift Dragon Steps. This was the body technique of the Tang family, a type of kung fu created to move as fast as lightning, for assassination and evasion. Urin happily laughed continuously, not thinking there would be a day he could learn a body technique that only existed in martial arts novels. Erin stopped to observe the strange way the young master was walking. She worriedly asked why he was walking unsteadily like he was drunk. Was there something wrong with his body? Urin smiled embarrassedly, answering he was completely fine. "Don't worry." Erin watched him keep moving with that posture with no intention of changing. She asked once more if he was really okay. She added, did he really want to go to training ground level 1 today, because there were many knights there. Urin confirmed certainly, he had already said it was fine, he just wanted to see how the knights trained. Seeing the two walk into the yard, all eyes focused on them, asking who they were. Someone recognized and answered that was the young master's butler, but they didn't know the handsome young man behind her. Everyone competed to ask, who is that? Does the Marcus house have such a handsome person? They had all heard news that the young master was diligently training to lose weight, but couldn't believe this was true. The whole crowd gathered to discuss if it was really the young master. Someone guessed he must have used magic. Another confirmed just last month they met him as fat as a pig. No matter how quietly the group whispered, Urin could hear everything because he had internal energy. Anger rose in his heart, but he couldn't do anything to them. Right then, Aaron pointed for him to see the person training diligently in that corner who was likely a trainee knight. She evaluated that person's form was very stable, likely to become an official knight. Aaron told him to carefully observe those movements as they were the basic sword techniques of the Rox family. Urin immediately recognized that person was Kraid, an important character who would later become the protagonist's ally. But what happened to him before meeting the protagonist he didn't know. Interesting, he didn't expect to meet him here. Urin thought this could be a good opportunity, but today he already had another target. Looking at the nearly -100 favorability of the knights who were mocking him, those people would be the experimental subjects for today. First was level 1 spreading poison. It started from one organ. The poison would spread to all other organs in a chain. Urin targeted the one who talked the most to activate the spreading poison. His whole face contorted, and he collapsed to his knees. The surrounding crowd panicked and ran over to see what happened, asking what was wrong with him. The pain grew stronger, making him lie on the ground. The person nearby shouted, "This is bad. Call the priest immediately." Right at this moment, his pain mysteriously disappeared. Everyone thought he was joking and scolded him, asking if pranking like that was fun. Urin calculated to the second experiment, which was level 1 soul-destroying smoke. It released a mist causing hallucinations within a certain range, sowing fear and chaos. Everyone was still standing around the guy who had just been in pain, warning him if he did it again things wouldn't end well. Urin took advantage of the opportunity while they were gathered to activate the soul-destroying mist. 3 people immediately experienced hallucinations, screaming in fear and crawling on the ground. Aaron frowned, asking what happened to them. Urin just stood behind, laughing loudly. The 3 of them picked up weapons and slashed wildly. In their hallucinations, they were now surrounded by a horde of monsters. He thought he couldn't let a murder happen. Today's testing was enough. After dispelling the hallucinations for the group, Urin also prepared to return. He made up an excuse that it was too noisy here to train and they should return to ground number 4. On the way back, a servant stopped him to report that a guest had come to find the young master. It was Lady Ilie, who wanted to meet him. Ilie came with an angry mentality. This time she was determined to cancel the engagement. After waiting a long time, she only saw a beautiful young man walk and calling Ilie's name. "Finally, you've arrived." Ilie didn't recognize this person as Urin and confusedly asked, "Who are you?" Before entering this room, Urin was somewhat surprised when the servant informed him the visitor was Ilie. He thought, why would Ilie, the fiancée famous for her punch, come to visit him? Until he remembered, not much different from this time was exactly when Ilie began demanding to cancel the engagement with Urin, but that character had continuously refused. He sighed lightly, feeling tired too. He had to quickly go there and handle it. Returning to the scene of the 2 meeting, Urin himself was a bit surprised when Ilie didn't recognize him, so he could only introduce himself, letting her know he was Urin. Hearing this answer, even the image of the noble lady Ilie didn't care anymore. She screamed, "What?" Urin smiled bitterly, saying it had been a long time since they met, so it wasn't strange that she didn't recognize his current appearance. With both eyes and mouth still unable to close, she insisted this was impossible. This young man was too different from the fiancé she once knew. She had heard rumors that he had lost weight through training, but she thought those were just rumors. In less than 2 months, how could a person change so drastically? Urin didn't know how to explain and just answered it was due to hard training. Ilie, not afraid of hurting the listener, bluntly asked him, diligently losing weight. Urin pretended to be heartbroken and began telling how after being hit by her, he returned and thought a lot, and just like that decided to change himself. Ilie, based on Urin's previous personality, guessed he wanted to cause trouble, wanted to retaliate somehow, so he made this action. Urin firmly answered no. He knelt down on the ground, expressing he was truly grateful to her. Thanks to her, he had clearer thinking. Urin sincerely apologized for the things before. As for her wanting to cancel the engagement, he would also agree. Ilie fearfully stepped back a few paces, not believing her ears, and asked again, "What did you just say?" Then loudly pointed at Urin, shouting, "Who are you really?" The fiancé she had known for so many years would not behave so properly like this. She didn't expect Urin to admit himself that he was a bastard. This time he truly wanted to send his apologies to her. Urin silently thought in his heart indeed this was his fault. Although the one who did wrong was the old owner of this body, the reason he apologized was because of Ilya's strength. Ilya was not an ordinary female lead, she had the Sword Empress talent. According to the plot, he wrote she would become increasingly powerful thanks to that talent and save the protagonist when he fell. Even defeating many major villains was thanks to the Sword Empress talent. Therefore, Yurin planned that even if the engagement was cancelled, it was best to improve the relationship to turn her into an ally. Ilya told him to stand up quickly. She asked if the words he just said were truly serious. If so, then hurry and swear. Yurin sensed an overwhelming aura pressure accompanied by a threat to Ilya that he would not live like before anymore. If he reoffended, she herself would beat him to death. Yurin felt this dialogue was extremely familiar. In the right situation, it should be for the male lead, not for him. But he was also about to suffocate, so he could only activate the 10,000 poison divine art, eliminating the pressure from the aura. Ilya was amazed that her aura had been broken. More surprisingly, Yurin really swore, even though there was nothing pressuring him anymore. Everything unfolded beyond imagination, making Ilya somewhat confused. She praised Yurin for doing well and would continue to monitor. As long as he made one mistake, she would cancel the engagement. Yurin watched her departing figure silently, crying out what happened, not canceling the engagement anymore. Ilya went to meet, willing to report the situation about canceling the engagement. He thought things were going very badly, so he asked Ilya to reconsider. He wanted to know why she wanted to cancel the engagement so urgently. Ilya sighed and whispered she had heard rumors that Yurin had changed, making her somewhat curious. She wanted to know if Yurin could change back to being a weak and kind person like when he was young, but the result was not so. Currently, he was a completely different person. The Marcus's face tensed as he listened to every word Ilya said. She continued, saying after today's meeting, she wanted to try trusting Yurin one more time, also giving him a chance. Suddenly, Ilya's voice turned colder as she emphasized if he returned to being a bastard, then she herself would beat him to death. Willing raised his hand, praising that she was indeed a strong girl. Please take good care of Yurin. He also wanted to keep Ilya to stay and play for a few days, but she had to return to report to her family. She shyly answered when she came here she had told her father she came to cancel the engagement, so she needed to return to explain the situation. Willing asked if she wanted to meet Yurin for a moment before leaving, but she refused. He could only send regards to the Marcus family. Yurin was called by his father to the room to talk. When he just stepped in, the father pretended to be surprised, asking, "Who are you?" Seeing his son's bewildered expression, he came to pull his shoulder and laughed loudly, saying, "Just joking. You've worked hard during this time, right?" Yurin asked father if he called him here today to talk about the night training course, right? Willing couldn't stop praising his son for being much sharper than before. Now he just needed to teach him the sword techniques of the Rock's family, and there would be nothing to worry about. Yurin interrupted him. He also had something to discuss with him about this matter. When hearing his son wanted to learn throwing techniques, he was extremely surprised. Instead of swordsmanship, such an outstanding person wanted to learn weapon throwing. Willing naturally refused. His view was that this was only for thieves and robbers. He loudly lectured that setting aside a knight's armor with mundane skills, like throwing knives, even the scales of low-level monsters like Bolak couldn't be broken. Yurin presented that then they could bet to see if he could catch a Bolak with a dagger or not. He repeated the proposal once more. If father was confident in winning, then try betting once. Willing sighed, asking what game his beloved son wanted to play. He worried his son didn't have enough knowledge to understand that a warrior's dagger needed chi force to pierce through Bolak's scales, and if wanting to throw, the person would also have to train for 100 years. Even so, they still couldn't scratch Bolak's scales. Yurin went along with his father's words, answering then the Marquis would certainly win, so just try betting. Willing scolded his son for being hasty. He agreed he would take this opportunity to beat some sense into him. He asked his son how he wanted to bet. Yurin didn't propose any big conditions, just that if he caught a Bolak with a dagger, then he would voluntarily practice. But if he failed, then he would follow his father's arrangement. Yurin returned with the bet in his heart, feeling particularly happy. He whispered, "Great, fortunately Eren really kept her word and didn't report his training. Tomorrow the real battle would begin." He calculated, not knowing how many throws it would take to pierce Bolak's scales, but tonight he would still eat poison to be safe, pushing the 10,000 poison divine art to level 3. Eren knocked on the door and came in to relay the Marcus message to Yurin that tomorrow at 12 noon at training ground number 1. Yurin suddenly asked Eren if she wanted to know the contents of the bet. She honestly answered not just her but everyone in this mansion wanted to know. Thanks to that, throughout the mansion everywhere was the sound of quiet laughter. Seeing Yurin's confused expression, Eren explained further that those people were enjoying discussing that he would be so scared he would wet his pants when facing Bolak or would run away losing his shoes. She emphasized to those people he was still the #1 target. He asked her back, "Is that so? They'll also come watch tomorrow, right?" Yurin's voice suppressed the anger inside. Eren answered yes, because the Marcus didn't prevent it, so all of them had gathered filling the training ground. Yurin didn't know whether to be happy or sad that the attraction of this body was truly too high. He opened one eye looking up at Eren, asking what did she think. Eren bowed her head, answering tomorrow would certainly belong to the young master. The next day at noon, when appearing at the training ground, although Eren had told him beforehand about the number, he didn't think there would be so many. It was truly packed. Willing sat up high, asking down if his son was ready. Yurin called out he was ready, but there were too many people. Even the Marcus didn't think everyone would pack the training ground. He only informed a few mages, but didn't expect so many. He reminded his son to remember not to embarrass himself. An old mage standing in the middle of the yard began the match, summoning close-range magic. Yurin thought he didn't expect to see magic with his own eyes. A loud explosion created a gray mist. Inside the mist gradually appeared a monster. The most surprising thing for Yurin today was probably seeing with his own eyes the monster he had drawn. Bolak was a water monster up to 150 centimeters tall, with a strange appearance, neither human nor fish. Everyone outside the yard gaped at each other, asking, "What is this thing? Why is it so bizarre?" One mother even covered her son's face, not letting him look at such a freak. Yurin thought, "Oh, so this is what it looks like." Actually, Bolak was created by him when he was lacking ideas. He had hurriedly drawn it while eating shark sashimi. Yurin evaluated if at that time he hadn't drawn it with deformed limbs like now, it would probably look cuter. The monster didn't give him time to think. As soon as it appeared and identified its opponent, it advanced to attack. It used its mouth and 2 deformed fins to bite and grab people. Yurin dodged left then right, not thinking it would charge straight at him as soon as it appeared, but he found its speed wasn't very fast. He used a small-sized sword, wanting to test the thickness of the monster's scales. When aiming at Bolak, the targeting point once again guided him to its weak spot. He just threw the small sword out and it stuck in the position near the fin. Almost at the same time, Bolak's whole body collapsed. Yurin smiled, so it died from the first strike. Everyone standing in the stands cheered that he got it. The young master got the Bolak. Willing excitedly left his seat, came down to stand right beside his son, asking how he did that. Yurin honestly answered he just aimed and threw. Willing bluntly replied this couldn't be accepted. Bolak dying with just 1 night strike was truly too unreasonable. Yurin warily looked at him, asking the Marquis wouldn't go back on his word, right? The mage, after examining the monster's body, reported that the young master's dagger hit the scaleless spot under Bolak's arm. Willing used this reason to not acknowledge the result. This was truly just luck. Yurin naturally disagreed. Lucky or not, they had already bet. The Marquis didn't want to argue loudly with his son in front of so many people, so he proposed another condition, one more time. If he succeeded this second time, then he would add another promise for him. Whatever the son wanted, he would agree, but if he lost, then he must immediately learn swordsmanship. Yurin smiled happily, asking if he could really have anything he wanted. Willing looked at his son as a confirmation. The upcoming match would be chosen by him, and the opponent would not be Bolak, but a knight. Yurin agreed. Even if it was a knight with his current strength, he wasn't afraid at all. He even saw this as a good opportunity to crush the arrogant ego of the Knight Squad Captain Karox. A moment later he thought again, but to maintain the steady supply of poison from Peru, perhaps he should temporarily leave him alone. Willing was not informed about his son's training situation, thinking that facing a real knight was still too much for his son. He himself proposed the challenge for Yurin would be a trainee knight. That would be the fairest for now. Hearing trainee knight, Yurin immediately asked the Marquis if he had the right to choose the knight. Kraid was the name Yurin requested. He received the order and immediately appeared. Kraid bowed his head, greeting that the Marquis had called. Willing answered yes. He had heard that he was training very diligently and was trustworthy, so today he would assign him a task. Kraid raised his head, looking at the Marquis, asking him to assign the task. Willing pointed straight at his son's face, ordering him to teach that guy a lesson. Seeing his opponent was Yurin, he asked in surprise. The Marquis, seeing his attitude, asked, "What's wrong? Can't you do it?" Willing knew Kraid wouldn't dare not accept the order. He watched him bow his head, reluctantly accepting the task. Yurin raised his hand, making a sign telling him not to worry too much. He would only throw the knife 3 times. His job was to block the knife. If successful all 3 times, then the winner would be him. Willing angrily asked Kraid if he saw that arrogant attitude. He reminded him to definitely give him a proper beating. Kraid, carrying the large sword on his body, entered the arena as everyone in the stands cheered enthusiastically. A group of acquaintances who regularly trained with Kraid shouted, "If he lost today, don't expect to have food." Another person added if he lost, he would run 100 laps around the arena. Mixed in with the cheering crowd, Urin heard a female voice joining in cheering for the young master, wishing him good luck. Urin thought, not knowing who was encouraging him, but he felt more excited. Kraid informed him that he was ready. Urin once again used the dagger, thinking, let's try gently first. As soon as he put Kraid in his sights, the weak points on his body were revealed. Compared to the bullseye when fighting Bolak, he was much stronger. Urin thought, could it be that if he aimed at the bullseye, the opponent would die immediately? But since he had no intention of killing, he threw straight without aiming there. Kraid, watching the slow speed of the knife, silently exclaimed, good. If it was only this, then he could handle it. As soon as those words ended, the dagger had created a certain force on the large sword in his hand, making him continuously retreat backward. Everyone in the stands craned their necks to see what the sound was. It sounded like firecrackers. Urin's dagger had pierced a small hole through Kraid's sword and flew to Willing's feet. He picked up the knife, saying, impossible. How could something ordinary like a dagger have such great power? Kraid was the one who took that force. Both his hands at this moment were still trembling non-stop. Urin asked his opponent if he was scared yet. Now he knew he couldn't be as careless as last time, right? Urin prepared another dagger, informing Kraid that this time he would throw with full force. Kraid still didn't react and only held his sword trembling. He thought this was the caliber of a protagonist, just this much couldn't kill him. As announced earlier, the second dagger, Urin used more force, flying straight toward him. Kraid reflexively used his sword to block. The dagger tore through the large sword, creating sparks that horrified everyone present. The sword in his hand officially shattered. Kraid held the remaining handle, completely collapsed. His current image was no different from a bullied child. Whoever looked would feel pity. Willing came down, calling his son's name. He wanted to talk privately with him for a moment. Urin said, Father, the match wasn't over yet. There was still one more dagger to meet the number stated. Willing awkwardly asked what he meant. This was enough. Urin didn't react to his father's suggestion. He let him know he would go talk to him. Urin first called Kraid to raise his head quickly, then asked if he wanted to end like this. Did he really want to become a knight with such a half-hearted result? Kraid stammered, young master, then didn't know what to say and could only continue being silent. Urin let him know whether winning or losing there must be a clear result. That was what a true knight was. Urin asked once more, Kraid, are you really going to give up? Kraid struggled internally for a long time before gathering all his courage to stand up and ask for another sword. He stood straight, answering him that Kraid would not be someone who easily accepted defeat like that. Willing looked at the scene ahead and loudly said, a trainee knight like that had actually awakened aura. All of this was within Urin's calculations, as he thought the berserker talent had appeared when he reached his limit. Looking at the current situation, he could now try a more advanced technique. Kraid returned to his original stance, holding the sword tightly in his hand, calling, young master, please throw it again. Willing still hadn't recovered from his amazement. He kept silently exclaiming no. Unexpectedly, there was such a terrifying amount of aura. Kraid now, according to his assessment, must certainly be on par with a high-level knight. Willing at this moment truly couldn't understand what his son was trying to do. Urin picked up another dagger and got into throwing position, performing an extremely difficult movement. Unlike the previous two times, the knife moved by spinning in circles, making Kraid unable to determine the position to block. In a moment of lost composure, he asked if Urin was mocking him. At the same time, the sword in his hand began moving, trying every way to block the dagger. Because the sword was too large, it couldn't be flexible and created an opening for the dagger to pass through. The dagger just stabbed straight into Kraid's shoulder. He screamed in pain, then collapsed. Everyone sitting in the stands didn't understand what happened. They saw the knife moving slowly, so why couldn't he block it? The crowd below started making noise, telling him to stop pretending. Wasn't he letting the young master win? Urin looked at Kraid with an extremely terrible complexion, kneeling on the ground. Only he knew he had accidentally channeled more internal energy than planned. In his heart rose a feeling of guilt. He must be in a lot of pain. Willing wasn't pleased with his son's action. He asked him why wasn't he saying anything. He had already won. Urin sighed, then went to place his hand on Kraid's shoulder and began absorbing internal energy. As soon as he touched him, he screamed in pain, but in just a moment the painful feeling disappeared. Kraid bowed his head, thanking the young master, at the same time also sending his apologies to him, because when the knife flew toward him, he had thought he was looking down on him, but it turned out not to be the case. It was a peak ultimate technique. Kraid said such skill couldn't be trained in a short time. He affirmed he had hidden his talent. He suddenly lowered his voice, speaking softer, leaning close to Urin's ear, asking if there was a secret organization targeting the Marcus family. Seeing his blank expression, Kraid thought he still hadn't heard the question clearly, so he repeated it once more. Was the Marcus family being threatened? Kraid explained clearly. He asked that because he always found it strange that only he was forgotten in the family. But in his eyes that was exactly a noble sacrifice, truly wonderful. Yurin smiled bitterly, thinking he just liked watching those conspiracy novels. Kraid still didn't let go. He followed closely, calling whenever he faced that secret organization, just call him. Yurin could see his favorability toward him was currently at 26, not knowing since when his favorability had increased to that level. He just smiled slightly, saying alright, opportunity to meet again later. Yurin clicked his tongue, whatever. The berserker's simple personality was also good. He had been left far behind, but still stood there encouraging him. He shouted loudly, believing the young master was not an ordinary person. Kraid promised to spread this news widely for everyone to know. Yurin didn't stop his action. He thought being near someone who could single-handedly defeat an entire knight squad like the berserker Kraid was wonderful. Eren met the young master again and said he had worked hard. She added it was the first time she witnessed a technique like that final move. Yurin agreed that move was brand new. How did she feel? Eren honestly answered she had imagined a battle in her head. If she had to face it for the first time without having seen it before, she would certainly lose. Eren still kept her pride as a knight and added, but now she could block it. Yurin knew these words from Eren were not empty words, because she had an extremely powerful and rare talent called Clear Mind. He suddenly spoke up, Eren, you were trained to become a knight from a young age. If not for following him as a butler, perhaps by now you would already be a knight. Yurin meant to ask if she was satisfied with her current life. Eren looked at the young master confused. Why was he suddenly talking about these things? Yurin didn't say more to her because he had just received an order to go to his father's room. As soon as he saw Willing, he asked, Lord Marquis called for what matter? Willing angrily scolded this brat when in private, couldn't you call me father? You're best at making me lose affection. Same as Eren, he called him here wanting to ask what technique he used yesterday. Even though he immediately went back to search through books, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find any book that recorded such refined movement. Willing felt it strange his son had only been training for 1 month. Even a genius had never learned such a difficult technique in such a short time. If not speaking directly, then this matter was extremely impossible. Willing worriedly asked his son what exactly happened. Quickly tell him the truth. Yurin thought it wasn't easy to say, but he had already prepared for this situation early. He let the Marquis know he had accidentally found a book. Yurin recounted everything that happened to his father first when he was in the attic library to study effective training method. He accidentally kicked a book on the floor, and just as he finished cursing, another book from the shelf fell down. Yurin began describing it was a book with no title on the cover, and was also carved with strange patterns. He had not thought much and opened the book to read. Then a beam of light emanated from the book, and something seeped into his head. Yurin ended the story he just made up with the book suddenly disappearing just as it had come. Willing excitedly said that book was a grimoire. Yurin of course knew what a grimoire was. He himself was the one who wrote about it. Excellent mages carved techniques or magic into books with their power, then passed them down to future generations. And a grimoire was something that could do that. The attic library contained countless books from the time of ancestors, so even Willing didn't know all those books. He affirmed finding that book was certainly his fate. Following the previous bet, the Marquis would also not force Yurin to learn swordsmanship anymore. And about the second promise not yet mentioned, he asked his son what he wanted. Yurin suddenly changed his way of speaking, asking father to pass on the inheritance position to him. Willing, hearing his son's request, immediately turned around in amazement looking at him. Seeing Willing's slightly hesitant expression, he smiled and asked if he really said so would he agree. The Marquis sighed, answering this matter was entirely within his decision rights. Yurin still kept the smile on his lips and interrupted asking, but father looked troubled. Willing couldn't give an answer, so he said himself if he became the heir then father would face quite a lot of trouble. At that time there would be people standing up to oppose. The Marquis Rock's family would be in turmoil, especially Lady Kana, who would certainly cause trouble. Willing remembered his wife's angry expression and sighed deeply, listening to his son continue. Unexpectedly he heard Yurin ask to give this position to his younger brother. Willing felt like a boulder was lifted from his heart. He laughed loudly saying, "Good, thank you, son." Actually, he had no interest in the inheritance position. Being the heir would tie him to the Marquis all day. He would also have to learn how to manage the Marquis mansion, living a life without freedom. Yurin would rather use that time to practice martial arts, traveling to find opportunities instead. Willing, feeling relieved, then asked his son what else he wanted. Yurin answered he wanted to establish his own knight squad. He presented the details of his wish. He wanted Eren, who was currently his butler, and also Kraid, the person he fought yesterday, to become his 2 knights. Willing, hearing this request from Yurin, was indeed simpler than the inheritance matter. He began considering Eren's talent was very valuable. Being a butler was somewhat of a waste. Finally, he decided to let Yurin do this according to his wishes. Willing asked further what about a butler for him. Among the current butlers, none were suitable. He remembered there was a person named Peru working in the kitchen. Yurin, hearing this name, immediately approved he wanted this person, but he asked father to casually appoint him not according to his wishes. The Marquis looked at his son confused. Why would that be? Yurin just answered he would explain later, so he didn't ask anything more. He guessed the Marquis had more trust in him now, which was why he didn't interrogate. Only now did he notice unexpectedly the favorability had increased to 74 at the trust level. Yurin exclaimed, being his son was indeed different. The next morning, Yurin's night squad formation was arranged properly. He announced from now on the two of them would belong to his personal night squad, so practice diligently every day. Yurin introduced his new butler was Peru. If meeting in the future, remember to greet him. Peru smiled bitterly, bowing his head, asking the young master to keep an eye on him. Erin had a question for Yurin about the reason he chose Peru as butler to replace her position. She still wanted to say something more, but was cut off by him explaining because he was an informant. Seeing Erin startled, he continued saying he was exactly sent by Night Squad Captain Karox and Lady Kana to undermine him. Erin still didn't understand then, why did the young master want to keep him by his side as a butler? Yurin grinned, it's fine. Currently he only listened to him alone. It was Kraid's turn to speak. He also had a question. Yurin smiled, questions are good. Very good, just say it. He began speaking his thoughts, although there were only 2 people as members of the Night Squad in name. But anyway, shouldn't there be a high-level knight as captain? And a high-level knight must be someone with outstanding skills. He hesitated, pointing at Erin, saying she looked quite small and slender, not at all looking strong. Yurin interrupted him, agreeing he was very right. The strongest knight would be a high-level knight. The solution he proposed was for the 2 of them to fight each other right now and choose the stronger one. If speaking honestly, then the match hadn't even started and Kraid was already overwhelmed by Erin on the ground with a sword point. Erin evaluated Kraid's movements were too predictable. He needed to practice more, otherwise he would be caught out even more. He was convinced of his defeat, answering softly, understood. Yurin praised the 2 of them for doing well. So today, the captain chosen would be Erin. Seeing there was nothing more for him here, Peru excused himself to go prepare dinner. Yurin watched his departing figure and whispered good. Although a bit faint, he could still sense the energy. After saying that, he tried the new technique on him, beginning a new experiment. What Yurin wanted to try was using internal energy to create sound waves transmitted directly into the listener's ears instead of speaking. Sound transmission into secrets was an essential technique in martial arts novels. Peru was moving along the road when he suddenly heard Yurin's voice calling and answered, but when he turned around he didn't see anyone. His voice continuously lingered in his head, making him panic and clutch his head. Peru silently exclaimed, it's happening again, could this be dark magic? Yurin smiled, then let's name it communication magic. Peru calmed down and transmitted back as expected of the young master. Suddenly thinking of something he had heard about a dark mage using magic to release poison, he exclaimed the young master was truly terrifying. Yurin smiled helplessly, let him think whatever he wanted. He asked if the poison requested last time had been prepared. Peru answered he had prepared snake venom, a poison extracted from the venom of 100 snakes. He had just finished refining it. Yurin licked his lips, praising good, remember to add lots of poison to his Tyrain soup. Peru fearfully answered yes, then ran for his life into the kitchen. Since reaching 3 stars of the 10,000 poison divine art, his internal energy had slowed its progress more than he thought. Yurin thought, not knowing how much longer before the day the world was destroyed, he had no other choice but to leave the castle. Before leaving, Yurin had let Willing know about his plan to leave home for a short time. The Marquis had no objection. After all, his son had been at home for quite a while. He asked his son if he was planning to go to the town within the Marquis' territory. Yurin went along with his father's thoughts, answering yes, that place, but actually he would go somewhere very far and had no intention of letting him know. Willing thought Yurin had trained diligently, so he didn't stop him. However, when hearing Yurin say he didn't need an escort, he immediately jumped from his chair, answering no. He told Yurin he needed to recognize his position. He was the eldest son of the Rock's family. Yurin smiled bitterly, explaining further it was just to the nearby village, so escorting wasn't necessary. Willing, out of worry for his son, shouted loudly, asking if he knew how dangerous the outside world was. He explained to him even if he was stronger that was true, but what if he got poisoned? Yurin's eyes went round, thinking he was immune to poison, but it seemed hard to convince him, so he had to change plans to deal with his father first. Yurin negotiated with his father. If he was that worried, then he would slowly go and wait until finding an escort. Willing softened his tone, confirming the day his son would depart so he could prepare an escort. Yurin sighed, thinking what escort? Tomorrow he would sneak out of the house and leave. First step successful. Next was the issue of living expenses. If sneaking away he couldn't get money, so the only way was to find Peru. He guessed he had money from Karoks given to buy poison. At first, Peru, hearing mention of money, didn't want to give it up, but seeing Urin's cold, sharp eyes, he could only smile awkwardly and hand over all the money. Urin taking money alone wasn't enough, so he also exploited his spatial bag. Just one bag could contain tons of items. Peru reluctantly handed over the bag, looking like he was about to cry. Urin, who received the bag, happily smiled with it. He didn't need to carry anything else. Having acted, he had to act until the end, so before leaving, Urin still played the good guy, giving Peru a small amount of antidote for the whole month he wouldn't be home. He sincerely thanked Peru for helping him with many things and promised he would give him the complete antidote soon after. Early the next morning, Urin left a letter in his room, then took advantage, while the whole house was still asleep, to sneak outside. Just as he predicted, leaving early in the morning, there was no one at all. Throughout the journey, he only met one person trimming tree branches who greeted him. Urin muttered this was the first time since coming to this world that he left the Marcus castle. To get to where Urin wanted to go, he needed to go to the magic tower to buy a package to use the teleportation gate. The cashier asked Urin if he had ever used this gate before. They needed to charge him a certain amount of money. According to Urin's thinking, this place was no different from an airport. They even set up teleportation fees like airplane tickets. The information receiver, hearing he wanted to go to AES Castle, said softly, "That's really far. The gate usage fee would be 50 gold. Hearing the price, Urin was a bit surprised. Although he had prepared money, he didn't think it would be this expensive. He received the paper from the transaction person and began filling in information, taking a fake name Polian that he used when playing games to avoid his family's search. The transaction person checked the information, then led him to a room. He reminded Urin to pay attention when he heard a knock that meant he had arrived. Urin just stepped into the gate thinking this gate was too modern when he already heard a knock from outside. A person standing at the door welcomed him to AES Castle. Urin amazedly asked the old man if he had really arrived. He hadn't felt anything at all. The old man laughed loudly. This wasn't the first person to say these words. He was extremely proud, letting him know such a comfortable teleportation experience was exactly the pride of their magic tower. Urin looked at the old man's unashamed smile, thinking the teleportation experience was something he had set up. Everyone would be teleported through a gate instead of horse carriages. Unexpectedly, when actually living in this world, it was this wonderful. The old man kindly escorted Urin all the way outside, wishing him a comfortable trip, and if possible, please come back to use the teleportation service. Urin stopped and looked around, observing the surroundings. This was AES Castle, not like the western region of the Marcus family. The architecture here was more modern. People were also more crowded. After evaluating, the first target Urin wanted to go to was the blacksmith alley. Urin wandered through most of the alleys with forge shops, but couldn't find the Karen forge anywhere. As the sky gradually darkened, Urin set foot in the last alley. He guessed it must be somewhere around here. Hearing the sound of hammering, Urin entered the shop, asking if anyone was here. The shop owner poked his head out from behind the counter, asking if he was a customer. Urin answered yes. He wanted to ask a bit whether among the forges around this area there was one named Karen. The shop owner, hearing this, looked at Urin in amazement, asking if he wanted to find the Karen forge. He added, as far as he knew around this area there was no forge with such a name. Urin slapped his forehead silently, exclaiming, "Oh no, could he have remembered wrong?" At this moment the shop owner smiled brightly, letting him know that was the name he intended to give to his own shop. To confirm if this guy was the person Urin was looking for, he used the eyes of the creator to view the information. The young man named Girano had the talent for forging magic weapons. Fire Harmony level 3, Concentration level 2, Precision level 2. Urin cheered. It seemed he had found the right place. He went deeper into the shop, asking if he could look at the weapons he was selling. Girano happily answered of course. He suggested he go inside so he could see all the weapons in the shop. While looking for weapons, Urin chatted, asking how his business was. Girano honestly said the shop was located in a hidden corner at the very end, and his skills also had many shortcomings. Because of that, even if customers stopped by, they just looked then left, not knowing how much longer the shop could hold on. Urin listened to him speak while his eyes continued evaluating the displayed weapon. The weapons were extremely good, absolutely no joke. He checked through one by one, starting with the Wind Spirit Sword, a sword blessed by Sylph, the Wind Spirit. It was attracted by the blacksmith's enthusiasm, not backing down before difficulties, so it had been blessed by them. The sword had effects of increasing attack speed, movement speed, and flexibility. Next, the swords behind were all similar. They possessed a power that not everyone could see. Urin asked the shop owner if all these weapons were forged by him. Girano answered yes. He smiled embarrassedly, letting him know after forging they all became defective. Urin, hearing they were defective, immediately asked in amazement, "What did he say?" The shop owner explained after completion they suddenly became abnormally heavy. Even the strongest person couldn't lift them, so no one wanted to buy them. Yurin silently exclaimed inside no. It was because those weaklings weren't worthy of touching the swords. If it was someone with enough ability, the sword would have transmitted its power immediately. Yurin pointed at 2 swords he had looked at, saying he would buy them. Girano straightforwardly let him know they were defective goods. Yurin didn't care, he thought they would suit Aaron and Kraid, but this still wasn't the treasure he was looking for. Yurin recalled what the blacksmith had said earlier, then asked if he had any goods that were more seriously damaged. Girano brought out a large box for him to choose from, his mouth whispering, calling him strange. Who in the world goes looking for broken weapons? All those weapons Girano couldn't sell to anyone either. If Yurin took them, he would leave them at a cheap price since they couldn't be sold anyway. Yurin from inside the box of broken weapons took out a knife just as he predicted it was in here. Girano, just looking at the knife, let him know it wasn't forged by him. He also didn't know where it came from to exist in the warehouse. He had intended to throw it away before, but felt it was a waste, so just left it in a corner of the box. Knowing Yurin wanted to buy it, Girano was even more surprised. Because he had bought 2 defective items, he only needed to pay 2 gold coins, and the last knife he would give as a gift. Yurin smiled slightly, thinking inside it was cheap, like giving it away. Once the true value of these items was revealed, even 200 gold coins might not be able to buy them. Yurin stopped his thoughts, directing them to a new path. Currently, he didn't just want these 3 weapons, but also wanted the person Girano himself. Yurin began his human hunting plan. He asked him, saying the shop had bad business and was about to close right. Next, was he going to work for others outside? Yurin posed the question. Girano expressed that naturally hearing these words from a customer made him a bit shocked. Indeed, he had thought about closing the shop, but this was a bit unexpected. Yurin could see the hesitation in his opponent's eyes. He decided to introduce himself a bit. The undefeated spear guarding the south, Yurin Rox of the Rox family, was him. Girano excitedly asked if it was really the Marcus Rox family. He immediately knelt down, apologizing to Lord Rox, not thinking he would come to such a shabby place. Yurin awkwardly told him to stand up quickly. Don't kneel on the ground, it looks bad. Girano kept his head bowed, answering like this would make him more comfortable. If there was anything, just say it. He smiled bitterly, telling him to stand up first. Indeed, the medieval class system was too complicated. Girano, hearing Yurin present his intentions, he then asked why choose someone incompetent like him. When learning it was because of his unique talent, Girano couldn't accept even more. That talent he didn't have, which was why his master kept scolding him. Yurin thought, not knowing who his master was, but they certainly must have taught Spartan style to end up like this. Yurin honestly let Girano know today he had passed through many forges, looked at countless weapons, but what he made was the most special. Yurin commented as someone who understood swordsmanship that Girano's swords were excellent, especially the knot on the handle, which was made extremely delicately. He let him know further that the knot was an important detail to prevent slipping hands. Yurin had seen the meticulousness of a craftsman, so he was certain his talent was latent and would soon explode. After persuading, Yurin felt a bit nervous. Everything was him talking nonsense, not knowing if it was okay. Beyond expectation, Girano easily agreed to follow Yurin just because of these words. He smiled naively, saying he was really different from the rumors. Yurin also laughed along, asking if the rumor was that he was a fool. Yurin completed the first target. Next, he used the dagger taken from Girano's shop to awaken the mysterious magic artifact Agnes. The knife immediately lit up. He told him this was the legendary blade with consciousness. It was supposed to be used by the protagonist, but he had come one step ahead to take it. A notification appeared asking if he still wanted to sign the contract. Yurin accepted. The voice of the blade sounded, making Yurin a bit surprised. According to the settings, it should have been a cute girl's voice. Aang scolded, shouting, "What the hell is this?" It cursed, asking who Yurin was to dare establish a contract. It bluntly commented he was a person without any talent at all. Yurin gradually understood perhaps this thing was disappointed because it couldn't sense mana from him, but the way it talked was no different from thugs. It shouted again, so troublesome, why establish a contract with a useless person? Aang went through various emotional levels. After cursing, it said forget it, but it wondered why he knew how to free it. Yurin answered he heard from the Great Prophet. Actually, the Great Prophet was just a setting he wrote to rationalize situation. Aang didn't believe this was impossible. How could the Great Prophet tell a useless person? There was only one reason, which was that he knew its power. Yurin answered yes, he knew, silently laughing inside because he himself was the one who wrote this setting. Aang had 2 parts, the main body and the secondary body, which was a customizable weapon form. What was special was they could transform into any weapon the user thought of. The protagonist used it as a sword and shield. Even if the secondary body was lost, it would still return to its own body. Ains contemptuously asked Yurin, knowing its power, and he also knew he couldn't use it right. It laughed loudly, letting him know it only worked with mana. It was best if he gave up. Yurin pointed his finger at the sword, scolding it for being too noisy, while at the same time transforming the sword into a ring to wear on his hand. Ains immediately sensed a warm energy flow. It exclaimed, asking what energy this was like melting. Yurin silently thought fortunately internal energy could substitute for mana. Ignoring that noisy Ains, he turned to ask Durano how much time he needed to clean up this place. He gave him an appointment to meet again in 2 days at the central park of Aes Castle. During the time until the appointment, Yurin conveniently went sightseeing around the area, unexpectedly meeting Ilie. Ilie, riding on horseback, stopped in front of Yurin, asking what he was doing in this place. He felt the situation of meeting at the park was extremely familiar, just like the scene where the protagonist met Ilie in the novel. Not seeing him answer, Ilie spoke up again, calling Yurin. Why was he here? She dismounted and asked Yurin if he was still awake. Yurin apologized because he was a bit unfocused just now, so he didn't know what she was saying. Ilie repeated she was wondering why he was present here. Yurin honestly answered he came to find a blacksmith. Ilie asked, a blacksmith? Didn't the Rock's family already have many blacksmiths? Yurin let her know that was true, but he wanted to find one for himself. Hearing she intended to help, Yurin immediately declined. It's fine, he had already found a very good one. Right at this moment, Geronimo's voice rang out announcing he had arrived. Did he wait long? Yurin calmly answered no, he arrived right on time. Since they were present, he introduced the two to get to know each other. Right then, a soldier came and interrupted their conversation, reminding that captain it was time. He looked at the two strange men and asked who they were. Ilie let him know Yurin was her fiancé. His face immediately darkened, answering if it was really Lord Yurin, then it was an honor to meet the young master. Musk introduced himself to Yurin, that he was the squad leader of Squad 5 belonging to the personal knight squad of the Marcus family. Yurin simply answered very honored to meet, but inside was filled with thoughts. He knew every character clearly even without hearing their title, because he was the one who wrote them. Musk was a supporting role with no talent except a cruel personality. More specifically, the background in the novel was like this. There were a mother and child who accidentally blocked his and the knight squad's path on the street. With that personality of his, he made things difficult, wanting to take the lives of that mother and child when the protagonist appeared. Next, a brawl broke out between the male lead and Musk. Then Ilie intervened in time. Feelings began to blossom from there. Most importantly, after that, the male lead fought alongside Ilie and saved her from death by a hair's breadth. Yurin hesitated. Currently, he couldn't go find the male lead himself and pair them together. The current situation was a bit difficult to handle. If letting Ilie go like this, she would die. Yurin pretended to ask where she was planning to go. Ilie answered lately Aes Castle had been severely harassed by ORCs, so her knight squad received orders to assemble to exterminate them, just as written in the novel. Then this time he had no choice but to take action, absolutely not letting Ilie die. Yurin spoke up, asking Ilie if he could follow along. He made the excuse that he wanted training, so he wanted to experience real battlefields and witness her skills with his own eyes. Ilie warned he might be in danger. Yurin jokingly said it's fine, he only looked like this, but when something happened, he ran very fast. Ilie had no more objections and told Musk to quickly prepare more horses for the two of them. Having more people would make the plan more troublesome. Musk opposed, not wanting him to join. This wasn't a pleasure trip. He emphasized even though they were just ORCs, they couldn't be looked down upon, especially when he couldn't sense mana power from the two of them. He opposed more fiercely that the army had no spare time nor obligation to protect outsiders. Ilie lost patience and sternly reminded Musk this was an order, be silent and obey. He couldn't oppose anymore, gritting his teeth to carry out the task while whispering if she felt too troubled, he could replace her captain position. Yurin received the horse behind carrying Geronimo. Ilie rode her horse to his side, reminding him to remember well to always stay behind her. It was very dangerous. Until they arrived at the mission location, Ilie divided the army into 5 groups to begin searching for the Orst hideout. She reminded them many times if they discovered it, absolutely do not attack first, must retreat and fire signal flares. Yurin teamed with Ilie began tracking traces. Difficulty appeared when orc traces were everywhere, making them unable to locate. Everyone fell into panic. After all, they had already come this far, but for everyone's safety, Ilie planned to stop here for today. Right at this moment, signal flares exploded. Not just once, but all teams fired flares simultaneously. Ilie, worried about everyone's safety, quickly spurred her horse to run. She ordered those behind to follow to the nearest location. First location, here there was no sign of life left. All had been killed. Even the wounds on the deceased bodies were extremely horrifying. Ilie didn't waste time and once again moved with the group to the second flare point. Arriving at the second place, the result was no different from the previous point. Ilie began to zone out, not knowing how to react. A soldier hurriedly ran up, urging the captain to quickly go to the next location. Yurin, who hadn't said anything throughout the journey, now stepped forward, stopping everyone. No one was allowed to go. Ilie looked at him, confused. What's wrong? Yurin seriously reminded everyone to stop and not move. He began explaining to Ilie the ORCs were dividing and hunting down each soldier one by one. At this rate, everyone couldn't possibly win. He told Ilie to cancel this campaign immediately, use signal flares to summon the troops back to regroup. A soldier angrily shouted, telling him to shut up. What the hell was he to interfere in this matter? He criticized it was because a useless person like him was here that things ended up like this. The cursing made Yurin remember the male lead in the original was also cursed like this. He himself had been mocked by readers for this hard-to-handle plot point. Remembering those mocking words, he felt somewhat haunted. The soldier's cursing still rang out, telling the useless one who knew nothing about combat to shut up. Yurin didn't want to listen anymore and raised his hand to attack, telling him to shut up immediately. He should know his place. The soldier was beaten, lying on the ground, not daring to talk back anymore. Next was Ilie, because in the novel she wouldn't listen to the male lead and do things her own way. He was calculating, not knowing how to persuade, when she unexpectedly spoke up, saying all right. As he said she would calmly assess the situation. She turned to order someone to fire the blue signal flare immediately, assembling the troops at this point. Yurin didn't interfere with their actions, but stood aside observing. Girano, carrying the large bag on his shoulder, came to praise the young master was too skilled. He could make them obey orders. He curiously asked next. They just needed to wait for the soldiers to come back here, and it's done right. Yurin calmly answered he couldn't say for sure because most of the soldiers wouldn't be able to return. In his head he silently thought because Musk had gone around behind and dealt with all of them. Yurin heard sounds from afar running toward them, in his mind calculating what was there to wait for. Execute the strategy now. Musk knelt down before Ilie, telling her to run quickly. Hurry, the ORCs were about to come. He hadn't finished speaking when behind him a group of ORCs appeared, their numbers overwhelmingly large. Ilie gaped. This number was too many. She looked at Yurin, awkwardly apologizing that because of her order he might have to die here. Yurin answered it's all fine, couldn't die. After saying that he alone advanced toward the ORCs, she worriedly asked from behind what he was planning to do. Yurin called out Ains, preparing to use what the two of them had practiced for the past few days. First was creating black iron bullets with the secondary body, a technique he learned when the 10,000 Poison Divine Art reached 3 stars, but he hadn't tested it. Black Iron Explosion was a technique transmitting internal energy into black iron bullets to launch hidden weapons with explosive power. Yurin threw the bullet straight at the orc group, making it explode loudly, sweeping away most of the ORCs present. After creating the explosion, the black iron automatically returned to Yurin's hand. He evaluated Agnes's returning skill suited his abilities. Just like that, repeating several more throws, the remaining ORCs were all swept away. Ilie curiously asked what was that? What was he throwing? Yurin smiled, answering it was called Black Iron Explosion. When there was time, he would explain in detail for her. While at it, he reminded her the orc numbers had decreased significantly. She zoned out for a moment before understanding and ordering the soldiers to advance. Ilie shouted loudly, "What are you still standing there for?" Victory was right before their eyes. This was the opportunity to eliminate the root. The soldiers, hearing the order, advanced to fight. The battle erupted more fiercely. Deep within the orc crowd appeared an extremely large orc roaring. Contrary to everyone's worried attitude, Yurin was somewhat happy. Finally, it had appeared, the legendary orc warrior Karuta. He knew if they didn't capture it today, then everyone would have to die. Wherever Karuta went, it created power there. The red power on its body made all the smaller ORCs avoid creating a path. As soon as it appeared, it created a terrifying scream, then used its huge sword to begin sweeping through everywhere it passed. Karuta's target was Ilie. It cleared all obstacles ahead and swung its sword, flying up to slash at her. Ilie's thoughts only stopped at needing to dodge, but her whole body wouldn't listen and stood still in place, not daring to do anything. Yurin quickly reached to pull her away, not forgetting to complain how could she stand frozen like that. Right at the spot where Ilie had just been taken from, received a sword strike from Karuta, creating a large crack. Both stood frozen, looking in panic. If delayed one more second, she would have lost her life. When calming down, her close subordinates had somehow all been killed. Yurin once again used Black Iron Explosion, throwing at Karuta's face. Looking at the bullet coming toward it, It had no intention of dodging and directly let the bullet hit its face, creating a large explosion. Yurin stood frozen, so it wasn't affected at all. He knew because it was an orc warrior, its skin layer from birth was already hard as steel, but with its current strength it was truly somewhat terrifying. Ilie herself held her sword and advanced toward the opponent, cursing this bastard dared to kill all her subordinates. This action was unforgivable. While moving the sword in her hand, emitted blinding waves of light. All of Ilie's actions were done coherently without hesitation. She slashed straight into Karuta's body, each sword strike alternating down, making it unable to resist. Several surviving soldiers loudly cheered for the captain to keep going. So cool. Yurin was also amazed, opening his eyes wide. Worthy of the name Sword Queen, Ilie was too strong. He thought even though this was just the beginning stage of the novel, she was already strong enough to match Karuta. He could see Karuta's steel skin layer and its armor being cut through, but the problem was about to come. It stopped all resisting movements. Its body began transforming with a loud scream. Ilie looked at it in horror. It was just an Orsi, yet it knew how to use aura. In just a moment of stopped thinking, Karuta had possessed overwhelming strength, striking back at Ilie. Now her strength was nothing to it anymore. She could only weakly dodge. The details were completely within Yurin's thoughts. Just like in the original, Karuta would defeat Ilie. She was helped up by two soldiers running over. They worriedly kept calling captain. With the responsibility of a captain, she let the two of them know. Although it was really frustrating with this strength, she admitted she couldn't defeat this monster. Looking at the current Karuta, her comment was not wrong. This monster was too strong. Regardless of what the people behind wanted to discuss, Yurin himself advanced forward, drawing out a dagger. He activated Shooting Strike, using the dagger to throw at the opponent. He carefully observed Karuta destroying his knife with the Shooting Strike. With just a wave of the hand, he calmly threw a second one. Karuta couldn't dodge this sudden attack, which took a large chunk of flesh from its arm. Its pained growling echoed. Yurin smiled brightly, saying the first one was just a fake to see how it would react, and also to make it lose its guard. At the same time, he had thrown another knife, but it couldn't see the knife behind. All thanks to the first Shooting Strike covering its line of sight. Yurin said its skin might be made of steel, but he guessed not every part was like that. Throughout the idle time just now, he had taken advantage to carefully observe and discovered the weak points where the armor had cracked. Such a good opportunity, how could he let it pass? He continued throwing into those cracked gaps. Karuta in pain couldn't stand still. It jumped toward Yurin, attacking. He saw this proactive approach as a good opportunity, waiting until it got close, then nimbly dodged aside, using the fastest speed to stick a knife into the back of its neck, creating a small explosion. Yurin smiled challengingly, asking if it was scared now. He had no intention of obediently being caught. Karuta suddenly stopped confronting him and turned its face, looking toward Ilie. Almost at that moment, it had run toward her direction. Yurin couldn't judge the situation in time and screamed in horror, no. Yurin cursed, damn it. He needed to find some way to save Ilie. Yurin had channeled all his internal energy into the swift dragon steps to run in time before the opponent's action. Karuta had reached a position where it could attack. It raised its sword high, preparing to slash down. Almost in an instant, its entire body was covered by a layer of Yurin's power, making it unable to complete its movement accurately. Ilie and several surviving soldiers were all amazed that his speed just now was truly abnormal. Karuta, after slashing down a powerful strike, but missing the target, hadn't even regained its bearings when it saw Yurin in front. He whispered, now let's end this. Ains of power transformed into shimmering bloodflower butterflies. It was the highest grade among the hidden weapons of the Tang sect of Sichuan. He waved his hand, ordering the bloodflower butterflies to carry out their mission. The colorful butterfly flew toward Karuta, pulling along a swarm of other butterflies behind. The scene at this moment was extremely colorful and dazzling, making Ilie exclaim, how beautiful. Karuta had the butterfly attached to its chest, immediately exploding, creating a large hole. It was a bloodflower butterfly with a lot of internal energy, but Yurin didn't expect it could also punch a hole through the Orsi's chest. Even he felt the firepower was too terrifying. The soldier who always followed Ilie cried out, it's down. Everyone has won. Ilie answered, not yet. They still had to face a few other small monsters. Ilie alone advanced toward them, crying out, let's finish them. Durano thanked Yurin, not expecting there would be a day to witness such a battle scene. Yurin smiled, thinking, and so he had completed his first real battle. It took a short while longer, waiting for Ilie to sweep the remaining monsters until the sky darkened. The mission was nearly complete. Yurin concernedly asked if she was injured, because it had been a while and she had remained silent. Ilie admitted she wasn't doing well, but it was because she owed him a life. It was hard to speak up. Yurin casually answered, it's fine. Helping each other was natural. Taking advantage of the free time, he explained to her about what she had asked before. The thing was Yurin learned hidden weapon arts, not swordsmanship. Ilya interrupted, asking hidden weapons were like short blades. He answered correct, hidden weapons, the exploding orb earlier, and the thing that looked like a butterfly at the final moment were all hidden weapons. He saw rudeness on Ilya's face for the first time as she amazedly widened her eyes, crying, "Oh heavens, hidden weapons to that extent." Yurin gently conveyed it must be hard for her to accept because she had trained her whole life and thought swordsmanship was the strongest. He hoped she could take this opportunity to broaden her perspective. Right at this moment, a soldier came to report they had finished preparing the magic bags. She took back her sword, saying even if they couldn't collect all the Orksu corpses, now she just needed to take Karuta's head. While speaking, her hands acted, using the sword to cut off its head, then pierced through, lifting it up. The soldiers followed with their eyes, crying out the size of this head was too large. The problem was if they just put it in without processing, the bag would get dirty. Ilya firmly said it's fine. Originally, this thing was used to hold enemy leader heads. Don't worry about it being wasted. She looked at everyone, announcing currently the sky was dark, let's head back. When they arrived, the numbers were extremely formidable, but when mounting horses to return, there were only a few people left. Right at this moment, Musk rode his horse from somewhere, calling Captain, wait. She stopped, asking where Musk had been. By the time he appeared, a long time had passed since the signal flares were fired. Musk sighed, recounting because they went too far and were attacked by ORCs on the way, so he was delayed while defeating them and returning. Ilya asked if what he said was true. What about the other soldiers? Why were only 2 people still alive? Musk remained calm before his lie. Everyone had been swept clean. The ORCs were stronger than expected. Ilya, somewhat suspicious, told him to take her to those corpses she needed to see with her own eyes. He hurriedly made up that currently the sky was dark, let's wait until the next day. But he didn't expect in this situation she would be more firm than usual. She insisted on going to see. Musk, while riding his horse closer to Ilya, called, wait, let him present the location first. As soon as the horse reached beside her, he took out a knife, wanting to stab her while his mouth cursed loudly, damn it. Ilya was horrified because there was no guard, but almost immediately, the arm holding the knife was affected by Yurin. He coldly asked, did he think he would be fooled when he said he had fought with the ORCs? He pointed out the abnormalities. He said he fought with ORCs, but there wasn't a bit of green Orku blood on him, and instead was human blood. Yurin affirms certainly Musk had colluded with the ORCs and leaked information from the beginning. Musk, painfully lying on the ground, asked how he knew. Yurin thought of course he knew, he was the one who wrote this detail. Ilya coldly, decisively drew the sword in her hand, looking at the opponent. Musk loudly cried out, wait, Captain Ilya. According to tradition, his Malin family had great contributions to the Marcus family. Ilya didn't listen to the explanation and directly killed him. Yurin silently praised, indeed, a hot temper as predicted. She ordered the remaining 2 people to quickly capture that soldier. His voice echoed, pleading for mercy. Everything was just following orders. Going to AAS Castle, the official residence, Yurin slept soundly after a long journey, then was woken up by Girano. It was almost lunchtime. Miss Ilya had also just arrived. Yurin, as soon as he opened his eyes, already saw the pretty Ilya appear. She asked if he slept well yesterday. Looking at her outfit, he amazedly asked what was with this outfit. Ilya spoke up, telling Yurin to come to her family. Her father said she had to bring him at any cost. She asked further he would come right. Yurin evaluated Ilya today. Look at her, the setting as the most beautiful entity in the world was indeed correct. Yurin took a while before answering of course he would come. In the original novel, this was the development where the protagonist saved Ilya and met Marcus. Ilya, hearing the answer, then went outside to wait, telling him to prepare first. While she turned her back to leave, Yurin finally had time to notice, on the status panel, her friendliness toward him had changed to 45. He didn't expect the friendliness would increase so much after just one time helping. On the way to meet Marcus, he kept hearing discussions about Ilya. Someone even excitedly cheered, that's the Iron Blood Knight. Everyone praised that Iron Blood Knight Ilya had single-handedly fought with Orcs soldiers. Everyone also gave them countless wishes. Yurin whispered the nickname Iron Blood Knight. This was a noble title given to Ilya for not backing down even when facing death before the Orc army. Indeed, this title was exactly like in the novel. Everyone didn't stop at Ilya, but also discussed the person walking beside her, the Steel Mage Yurin. Yurin amazedly asked, what? Steel Mage what? This nickname appeared because the accounts of the surviving soldiers had spread when they saw Yurin attack with steel attacks. Because of that, they had seen Yurin as a mage capable of controlling steel. Suddenly, Ilya, walking beside, called Yurin's name. She thanked him once more for saving her life twice. Yurin, confused, said this was natural. Ilia said so because this morning, as soon as the sky brightened, she had led soldiers back to the forest to collect the bodies from yesterday's terrible battlefield. Ilia lamented the scene was too brutal. When seeing the pitiful bodies of soldiers scattered throughout the forest, she realized something. If Yurin hadn't been there yesterday, she would have had the same ending. Ilia shared she would train harder, she would use her strength to save everyone, she couldn't be defeated anymore. Yurin thought now she truly brought out all her talent and became a powerful warrior, worthy of the Sword Empress trait. They stopped at a large hall. Ilia explained the Marcus family wasn't far from AES Castle, but her father had called the family mages to transport him more comfortably. In just a blink, the mages had teleported them to Marcus family territory. Ilia asked it had been a long time since he came right. Yurin was still immersed in surprise. The surroundings had changed in an instant thanks to teleportation. He didn't understand why there was a slightly dizzy feeling. He guessed the spatial teleportation feeling the magic tower had mentioned must be real. Urano, seeing such a magnificent scene for the first time, asked if the young master's residence was also as grand as this. Yurin was busy thinking and didn't pay attention to the surroundings. Currently, he was called to dine just like the protagonist had done. What he wanted to think about was the food because at home, he had to eat a lot of Tyrian soup. But today, he could finally enjoy noble food. Stepping to the dining table, he politely greeted Marcus. He told him not to be too formal, just sit down. Before starting the meal, he sent thanks to Yurin. Marcus said before becoming his fiancée, as his daughter, "Thank you very much for saving her life." Yurin answered it was nothing, just something natural he needed to do. Right at this moment, the chef brought in food, which was a special Tyrian soup in the style of the Marcus family. Yurin immediately darkened his face hearing the chef present the meaning of the dish. Similar to the Rox family, but with the family secret of the Marcus family, the chef had made it richer. Same as Rox, the Marcus family had a tradition of eating Tyrian after battle. Marcus wished him a good appetite. He could only thank him for the meal. Yurin consoled himself while with special Tyrian soup. He was someone who could eat things that could be mixed with poison. During the meal, Marcus suddenly asked when he planned to get married. Yurin observed him, wondering if he was testing him. He could see his current favorability was -10, slight dislike. Yurin guessed that favorability must have increased dramatically compared to the original to reach that level. He calculated his answer would be to marry right now. Before the amazement of the two people, Yurin continued, but he still hadn't become the heir. He continued, currently he was still receiving cold looks because of his past as a bastard. He wished to change himself to become a man worthy of Ilia's trust, and when officially becoming the heir, he would marry her. Marcus bluntly asked if that was feasible, because he had heard his younger brother was a genius. He wanted to confirm if his meaning was to defeat them and become the heir. Hearing the words of course from him, Marcus laughed loudly, saying he had really changed a lot compared to the rumors. This matter he completely supported. Marcus let him know further the Willing family had contacted him. His news had spread to Rox. He guessed someone had notified Willing through magical methods. Yurin knew communication magic was used for contact. He curiously asked what father had said. Marcus answered he had requested to contact him afterward through communication magic. Marcus would guide him to the communication room after the meal to contact his family. Yurin thanked Marcus, but according to observation, somehow Ilia was angry. But the result seemed he had succeeded in making a good impression on Marcus. Yurin, through the magical communication method, saw Willing on the other side, giving him a feeling like a video call. As soon as he saw his son, he was extremely angry, wanting to scold, but restrained himself, asking if he was injured anywhere. He suspiciously asked his son if it was really true that he had killed the orc warrior with his own hands and saved Ilia. Yurin modestly answered it was thanks to luck that he could do it. Willing, wanting to hear details about the incident, asked when his son planned to return. On the way, also bring his younger brother back. Willing emphasized to remember to return as soon as possible. Marcus expressed regret that it would be great if he stayed a few more days. It had been a long time since they sat together like this. Yurin politely answered he also wanted that, but father had given him a commission. Although with some regret, Marcus said let him prepare teleportation so he could travel more comfortably. Yurin felt extremely lucky, but he had to refuse because he was still in the stage of needing to cultivate his body, shouldn't rely too much on teleportation. Marcus exclaimed he had truly become a different person. He very much hoped to see him become stronger. Yurin thanked the Marcus, but the truth was there was another reason he didn't use the Marcus family's teleportation gate. Durano curiously asked, wasn't the young master going to the capital? This wasn't the direction to the capital. He pointed to the mountain ahead, answering there was a place they needed to stop by first, the large mountain beside the Marcus territory. Durano had heard people mention the dragon's nest on the mountain, so he asked if he was going there to make a wish. Yurin smiled, answering no. Going there to bring back treasure that currently only he knew about. something that the protagonist would find later. The cave named the Dragon's Nest was said to be the dwelling place of dragons from ancient times, so many people often gathered there to pray. Because the two arrived early, there was no one yet, but below the mountain quite a few people were already moving. Geronimo said with so many people like this, was there really treasure? Urin mysteriously said it's all fake. The world has countless secrets. After saying that, he told him to quickly follow him around the mountain. Climbing to the mountain top, Geronimo panted with an unclear voice, calling out there was nothing up here at all. Urin didn't answer but stared intently at the door he had set up. It was designed by him like a car lock. Before opening, needed to confirm there was no one else around. A door was then opened. Geronimo cried out impossible. Urin just smiled, telling him to come in together. Inside the cave was much brighter than he imagined. He amazedly looked at a sparkling stone and asked Urin wasn't this a gemstone. He immediately reminded him not to touch it or it would trigger a trap. He curiously asked what kind. Urin described dangerously, probably the kind that would turn into a sea of fire. Both of them would be burned alive. Successfully intimidating Geronimo, he told him to quickly follow closely behind. There were still many traps. After walking for a long time, Urin stopped at a wide hall, saying this was the place, then asked Geronimo if he knew what this place contained. Urin let him know the Dragon's Nest only led here. He could sense the energy of the people praying outside. He teased, adding now those people were praying to the two of them. Coming to the treasure to find, Urin opened a secret chamber under the stone table. Inside revealed a large golden magic bag, making Geronimo gape in amazement. Urin didn't care about that gold. He picked up a box and opened it. What was inside was more important than gold coins. It was the battle gem with regeneration effect. After checking, he ordered Geronimo to quickly stuff the gold coins into the magic bag. After collecting everything, the two again moved to a new location, to the magic tower at Assi Castle for teleportation. Geronimo always followed behind Urin. He called out at this hour there were still so many people going outside the city. Urin didn't pay attention to him. He used the eyes of the creator to look at a strange girl. After looking, he cried out in horror, impossible. She was the person who appeared in the second half of the novel. He worriedly tried not to let his existence be noticed. He didn't know how strong her aura currently was, but his existence absolutely couldn't defeat her. Urin worriedly came up with a solution that they needed to leave here quickly. The girl looked in the direction Urin left, silently calling out something wasn't right. Urin returned to the inn, still worried in his heart about the existence from earlier that should only have appeared in the middle or end of the plot. He didn't understand why it appeared so early and right at that place. If things were as they should be, the monster searching for treasure in the Divine Dragon Cave should have appeared later. Urin could only deduce the flow of the story seemed to be changing, and now he also didn't know where the protagonist was or what he was doing. For that reason, Urin himself ate the gem he just obtained. Keeping it on his person longer would be more dangerous. After swallowing that gem, he felt his whole body burning and needed to circulate energy immediately. The status panel displayed beginning full body transformation, transforming to a stronger body. Urin told himself he needed to quickly become stronger, circulating energy from night until the next morning. Finally, Urin received the result of achieving Heaven's martial body. He silently exclaimed he hit the jackpot. It was Heaven's martial body. Heaven's martial body usually only appeared in martial arts novels as the strongest enhancement, whether sword or fist. Just looking once could perfectly recreate the movement. After the change, Urin felt his body light as cotton, his heart full of joy. Geronimo knocked on the door and came in wanting to call him for breakfast, but when seeing the person was extremely amazed. He came closer to observe, asking why in just one night he had grown so much taller. Urin smiled bitterly, answering impossible, probably just seeing things. Geronimo affirmed that wasn't right. He was a blacksmith, so just by looking with his eyes he could measure length. He even specifically pointed out yesterday his height was 1.78 meters. Today it was already 82. Urin thought those eyes were really sharp, and he also didn't pay much attention. Thanks to Heaven's martial body, growing taller like this was also good, wasn't it? Urin's next plan was to go to the capital, so he used the magic teleportation service. The transaction person let him know currently the route to the capital was being restricted. He explained further because the location was the capital, it could cause danger to the royal family, so commoners without status would be specially restricted from entering and leaving. Urin silently thought, indeed a noble society. There was no other way except to reveal his identity. Urin introduced himself to the transaction person that he was the eldest son of the Marcus Rock's family, and behind was Geronimo, his personal blacksmith. Everyone hearing the name came to greet, asking if it was really the steel mage. They curiously asked if it was true. He had continuously thrown out many steel orbs and they even exploded. More and more people came to ask questions. They asked how he had located targets. Someone even wondered why when getting close they couldn't sense magic power emanating from him. Right at this moment, an old man came to remind them that was enough. He turned to apologize to Yurin for the rudeness of the students. He introduced himself as Yubian, the chairman of the AAS Castle Magic Tower Council. Grand Mage Yubian was exactly a character he had created for fun. On the outside, the image of a kind old man, but in reality a terrorist. Whenever in a bad mood, he was a crazed killer, murdering people in the shadows without blinking. Yet Yurin had forgotten he hadn't even made him appear in the story, so he was here. Yurin's eyes went round, thinking he kept encountering terrifying characters like this. Yubian said he would personally teleport him to the capital using this room. He mysteriously smiled, saying somehow he had a feeling he would meet him once more. The announcement sounded, letting him know he had arrived at the capital. Girano bustled about, praising why the buildings here were so luxurious. Even the clothes of the people were so extravagant, truly a completely different world. Yurin happily told him to buy clothes with the money he gave, but was refused. The two went to the Royal Knight Academy. It looked extremely magnificent. Yurin wanted to go inside, but was stopped by the guards asking, please state your name and the name of the student to meet. He answered the name Yurin, wanting to meet his younger brother Colin Rocks. From inside the gate came out a young man with platinum hair, calling Yurin, as if wanting to confirm if it was him. He recognized this person came from the Grand Duke Elian family of the North, so he answered yes, it was Yurin Rocks. He came closer, asking if he was the one who had taken down the orc warrior. Yurin silently thought the rumors had already spread to the capital. The opponent then suddenly asked further if that was correct. Then he was a very strong person, right?